Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Deep Water. My name is Daniel, and joining me today are Anthony.
Hello, everyone.
And Shahbaz.
I'm not even sure what to say to Anthony's first. I mean, it was very Luigi, I think. I'm like, what movie are we reviewing? Did we get a screening of the Mario movie yet?
No, not yet. No, I think he was just impersonating
Maybe he's auditioning.
Jared Leto from House of Gucci.
One of his favorite films of 2021.
It is. It's very true.
Dude, this is the story of Luigi and Mario and Princess Peach.
Interesting. I was trying to think of like an intro, like some type of like joke to introduce you guys like we normally do on the show. But it was hard. It was a little too hard.
Yeah. Here are the snails.
Oh God, I was going to be like my deep water. Okay, are they like drowning? Like joining me drowning? Like no, like it doesn't.
I would drown because I don't know how to swim. So.
Wait, you don't know how to swim?
Yeah, you don't know how. Remember, we went swimming with him, and he kept just hanging out by the sides.
Oh, is that why? Like his hands were like ripping into our shoulders when we were in the water.
I just stand in water.
We're like,
Anthony's the shallow end.
Anthony, please, it's a puddle we're walking through. Why are you doing this?
As always, you can catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast every single Monday, and watch out throughout the week for our review episodes on all the latest movies and series. Make sure you're following us at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, join our Discord, and write into the show at hello@TheMoviePodcast.ca. You could also follow us on YouTube, so you could ring that notification bell and click that subscribe button, youtube.com/TheMoviePodcast. We're doing some really fun stuff there with our episodes. And if you just want another place to support us, please head over to our YouTube page. It'll mean a lot to us. Anthony has been on us about using our YouTube page again, and it's been fun going back and looking at all of our videos, especially going back to, our trailer reaction days all the way back in 2018. There's some really fun stuff there. If you want to see like the beginnings of the Movie Podcast, definitely go check that out. Some quick announcements before we dive into our review of Deep Water. You could catch a bunch of reviews out right now on the Movie Podcast feed. Movies like Turning Red, The Adam Project, The Batman, X. There's so many amazing reviews to listen to. You could also catch our spoiler cast of The Batman. You could catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast out right now. And you could also catch our interview with Turning Red director Domi Shi, producer Lindsay Collins, and actress Maitri Ramakrishnan right now on the Movie Podcast feed. So we have lots to listen to. If this is the first time you're listening to us, there's lots to catch up on. So thanks for being here. But today is all about Deep Water. This film is directed by Adrian Lyne and stars Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. And Shay's going to tell you what it's all about.
Based on the celebrated novel by famed mystery writer Patricia Highsmith, who wrote The Talented Mr. Ripley, Deep Water takes us inside the marriage of a picture-perfect Vic and Melinda Van Allen to discover the dangerous mind games they play and what happens to the people that they get caught up in them.
Deep Water is going to be releasing Friday, March 18th on Prime Video in Canada and Hulu in the United States. And I just wanted to say thank you to our friends at Prime Video Canada for sending us the film to review. Anthony, I'm going to get you to start us off with your first reactions.
Going into this movie, I remember seeing clips and not clips, we'll say photos of this production happening. Throughout the months after, I think we learned about Ben Affleck and Anna going into a relationship, and we were like, oh, I'm super interested to see these two, actors act together and what the story they're gonna tell. And I think that was like almost like two and a half years ago, and here we are with Deep Water, and learning and diving into this movie, and figure out who the director is. You kind of connect the dots that this is going to be an erotic thriller type of story based on his previous work. The first thing, if you watch this, the first thing you're going to see is this is probably the most awkward relationship you'll witness, because it is a story about a married couple, and it is a story about how far you can push a relationship in terms of how much you trust this person, what they're doing, if you're the wife, the husband, and how he's dealing with it, because it is a story that you're just like, what does anyone see what's happening in front of these people? And they do. It's so weird. It's such a weird story, but it kind of grips you into the sense that I want to learn more and I want to see more. And I might get some flack for liking it so much, because I know a lot of people didn't like it. But when I don't pick up my phone throughout a movie, that means I'm kind of gripped and trying to figure out what is happening. Why are they doing the things they're doing to each other? You have a promiscuous wife. You have a husband that's allowing her promiscuity. Is that even a word?
I don't think so. I do not think. I don't think so.
Promiscuity?
Promiscuity. Yeah.
And even the whole town is aware of her infidelities. And it's just weird, but everyone's like okay with it. But there's a husband who's dealing with, he's kind of frustrated that she's doing these things, and then ends up, and this is not a spoiler, but just ends up kind of like getting angry at points.
And
like
right,
leads to some choices. But it's an interesting story that I didn't expect this to be the movie, and I kind of was thinking of this is kind of like a case study on relationships, and I just I did like it. It is a weird film, super weird.
It is a very weird film. Shay, I'm going to get you to jump in and give us your first reaction for the film.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had the exact same reaction as Anthony here. I didn't really pick up my phone. The only time I did was like quickly to get something in the house. But no, I was glued in. This was one of those movies that I also didn't expect to like. I mean, I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, this seems like a super erotic film. And knowing where the director comes from, I'm like, this is just going to be horny the whole time. And yeah, like there's definitely moments of that for sure. But overall, this movie, it's not like as horny as I thought it would be. Like there's definitely like sexual moments. There's definitely sexual scenes. But overall, the film just, it kind of like has more of like a tense environment. And I felt so sucked in. I felt so entertained. I felt very like, I want to kind of know what happens. Like the acting kept me gripped. Now, while I was watching it though, I kept thinking like, okay, some of this stuff is pretty stupid and it's pretty silly. And I don't think most people will like this, but I'm hooked. There's something about the level of obscurity that this film kind of goes into. And I think that's thanks to Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck, who create this really like toxic kind of relationship. And then where the story kind of starts to weave when all of her lovers start to disappear, you start to go like, okay, is Ben doing this? Or is he just like the really nice guy? And is there a deeper meaning behind this whole movie? Because I wasn't trying to like really pick apart these characters or really get to understand their psychosis, but at the end of it, I'm like, oh yeah, Ben's like messed up because of this. Anna is like this because of this. And like, I just kept like breaking it down. And yeah, I really liked it. I had a really good time with this movie, and I get and understand people's frustrations, but I started seeing some tweets that were coming out today from the US as well. And it definitely seems like some people were like, either like, yeah, this is like really good and really silly and really wild, or I absolutely hated it. There was like really no one in the middle.
Yeah, and I'm happy to not be in the middle either, and I'm on the side of I thought this movie was really dumb. Like I didn't expect to. It's not often that we kind of all like that. I fall on a different side than you guys too often, but I was watching this movie and I was actually just kind of blown away that Ben and Anna were in this film, especially knowing the caliber of films and acting ability that we've seen them capable of. I was just more blown away that Ben just seems so withdrawn in this film. Anna's just kind of there. And this movie, like you could tell it's based on a book, but it also feels like they just omitted so much from where this movie was adapted from. And it's interesting that, like, you mentioned the director, Adrian Lyne, who, did Fatal Attraction and did a bunch of other films. This is his first film in over 20 years. And it kind of feels like that because this is a director who is coming back after so much time, and now we're dealing with a movie that I just felt like 30 minutes into it, 40 minutes into it, 50 minutes into it, I was like, what is the purpose of this? And I was never, I'm glad that you guys were gripped and you were engaged with it and you're curious. I was curious to see where it was going to go. But as it was kind of getting to these places, it just felt like a collection of scenes that really didn't tie into each other for me and just left me feeling like I don't understand the purpose of this film as a whole. And then as we get to the ending, I messaged you guys, and it was like the big climactic scene in this felt like almost laughably bad. Like it was just so ridiculous. And obviously, like I'm not going to spoil anything here on this, but like it involves a character chasing a car on a bike, and these things happen. And I was just like literally watching it, just so confused that they thought that this was okay. And I was just very taken aback that like this felt like a movie that would have come out in the 90s. And I wasn't surprised by the director who was part of it. It felt like a 90s movie. I felt like Ben and Anna, which is so funny. Like whenever we would see the set photos of them, I'm like, oh, they look like such a loving couple. And then maybe, I don't know if it's a testament to their acting ability, but you would think that if they hated each other so much in this film, you would have still felt like there was some type of chemistry to them, that even though they don't work together, they just feel so awkward together in this movie. And every time like she would bring kind of like a new man into it, it just felt like it was like we were just getting the same scene over and over again with a different person. And that could just be like a testament to like how the book was written or their choice for this. Because Sam Levinson, who was also a writer on the film, him from Euphoria and from Malcolm and Marie, which were the most recent works that he's done. It just felt like it was just like needlessly dramatic. But I will say, like you guys, I was curious. I was curious enough to not really look at my phone or to like, as we don't really do when we're watching movies. But I was just more kind of glued in the sense of like what I'm watching right now is not good, but I am curious to see where this is going to go. So that's kind of where I am with this movie. It kind of like it relaxes somewhere in that space of like, this is so like bad, it's good. And I've been kind of seeing a lot of takes like that too, where like this movie is just so like ridiculous that people are going to almost like, let's watch it just to see like the weird car wreck that it is. But yeah, that's kind of where I am with it.
See, for me, I think one of the points that you bring up there is like the movie kind of reminded you of like a 90s film. And I think there was this like comfort that I had watching it because, these erotic thrillers of the 90s, the plots really were so stupid and silly and it just always felt kind of dumb, that it was always just the tension of the characters. And Ben kind of just seemed like a wild card. Like he seemed like, like he hates Anna, but also that he's like almost like lusting after her, like in a weird. But that's the thing, like he doesn't hate her, but.
Are you sure? Because they were.
Hates her.
I think she hates him.
Yes. Yeah, but he was also throwing so many shots at each other. Every scene is just like, because you're drinking, because of this, because of this. I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't think you'd say that to somebody you love, though.
No, but I think it's a toxic relationship, and I think that's really what like turns him on in like a really weird way. Like,
definitely possible.
He never like hit her or like raised his voice. It always felt like he enjoyed saying those backhanded compliments, because that's the kind of sick and twisted relationship they have. Like if she's cheating on him, then he's calling her out on her flaws. It's almost like that's kind of the balance that they kind of had.
I totally see that, Shay. I totally see that.
And I know that we don't want relationships to look like that, but that is a lot of relationships.
It's not good.
They are like that. I know it's not good, but
true.
that's
you're not wrong.
That's why the divorce rate is so high.
Let me list all the couples we know that are like this. Okay,
we'll put them on blast right now.
But I think there was some really tense scenes between them two, especially in the car scene where she's like, I don't know, she's slapping him and he's just like not giving a shit and he's just staring and he's like kind of focused. It's just, there's certain scenes that build the tension between this relationship, and then there is some lighthearted scenes because they have a child together, and it's just they have this child in the middle of this toxicity, which is interesting because I don't feel like it's strange because he's more the father than she is the mother.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really see her as a mom. She's mostly like drinking half the time or spending her times with these young men while he's taking her to school. He's really like the caregiver.
Yeah, but it's funny you mentioned young men. They're probably the same age as Anna because Anna is like 15 years younger than Ben. Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, most of these people actually were very like, for example, Jacob Elordi, the piano player, who's Charlie. He's like 10 years younger than Anna.
Interesting.
Which is pretty crazy, and he's also famous from Euphoria. But I wanted to give a quick shout out to Grace Jenkins, who plays their daughter Trixie. I thought she was so lovable. Like she had a really good charm to her.
Yeah, she
was cute.
Really great reaction shots, especially like when they're washing dishes, and he's like looking at his daughter, and she's looking at him, like who is this guy type of thing. It was like, man. Another funny thing, well, not funny, but it was low key funny at some points. I don't know if you guys got that, but like, it was Lil Ray.
Oh, I was laughing. Let me tell you.
You and I were texting Anthony, like I was texting him, like, yo, I kind of laugh at this scene. Like it was almost like intentionally, but not intentionally funny in some ways, where like it was a stupid moment, and you're like, okay, like when Ben was talking about not eating snails, it was so funny. Like it's such a stupid line, but for some reason it worked. Like I bought it. Like because the thing is, I've seen people like this, and I think that's kind of why this movie, as ridiculous as it was, I was like, I've seen this, so I know what this is about.
Yeah, we don't eat the snails.
There was also like you're introduced to there's characters in here that you want to know more of, but they're just so thrown away.
Yeah.
For instance, we have Tracy Letts, who's in this movie. He's from Winning Time, and he plays Ford and
Henry Ford
Jr.
Henry Ford.
Yeah. Great actor, but like you don't really see him in this movie, and you think he would be more prominent. You have Dash Mihok, and then you have Rachel Blanchard.
You have Lil Rel in this too, like
from Clueless, and Kristen. Like you have this supporting cast, but they're just not there. It's really focused on the two, but it just seems that why would you cast these people for such a small role?
And I think that's where it comes from. When you're adapting from a book, you have these characters who, when you're coming from the book world, who are fleshed out a lot more, where anytime we had a scene with just like these random characters, I never really connected or cared about them because they were just kind of there, like we have characters who are trying to like out, what Ben Affleck's character is and things like that. And like, there's not enough, like they'll show up and like, oh, it's this guy again. It's like, but where in a book you would I think you would feel that tension a lot more. But when you have a movie that's about 2 hours, which I still felt longer than it was, I think this movie could have been a lot, in the hands of, I think, of a better director. We could have had a shorter film with a lot more of a proper build-up and tense throughout in this movie. But yeah, these characters, like you were saying, Anthony, they just kind of come and go as you're watching it. Shall we get to our final recommendations of Deepwater?
Yes, sir.
Before we do, I just want to remind you to please make sure you drop us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We are slowly creeping our way to the 200 5-star review mark. Right now, we're about, I think we're about 46 reviews away. So we're not too far. So if you want to help us push over the edge, that'd mean the world to us. Also, don't forget, you could follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd at The Movie Podcast. So please don't forget to do that. Anthony, I'm going to get you to start us off with your final recommendation for Deepwater.
I recommend you watch it. I think if you're a Prime member and you have Prime Video on your device or whatever you watch your content on, put it on. It's a great Saturday night film. I think there's to what you'll like it or you won't like it. You'll say this is stupid, or you'll say, you know what, I put away my phone and I enjoyed the story. But yeah, it's a watch it for me.
Shahbaz, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm same as Anthony. I think either going to be liking this movie or just going to hate it. There's going to be a form of nostalgia that I think kind of kicked in while I watched it. So I'm going to say watch it.
For myself, I am going to say skip it. Stay far away from this movie. There are a lot better films to watch on whatever streaming service that you are paying for. But it's nice to have some different opinions on the show. So take that as you will, as you do all of our reviews, and then maybe take a look and see if it's going to do it for you. Don't forget, you can watch Deep Water on Prime Video here in Canada on March 18th, and Hulu in the United States also on March 18th. Thank you so much for listening to our review of Deepwater. Don't forget, you could follow us at The Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd, and send us an email at hello@TheMoviePodcast.ca. That was This Time with The Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.